Brace for Impact.
Welcome to the 25th episode of Brace for Impact, covering all things Impact Wrestling. As always, live from the No-Sell Studios on the ACEFIELD Tavern, ACEFIELD Retro. And join us amazing Thursday with @Mania. Colton, Jesse, what is up, dude?
What's going on, brother? Man, 25 episodes, a quarter of the way to 100. It's kind of hard to believe. It's flown by, and this is be one of the last times that we say bringing you everything Impact Wrestling, man. Only a couple more weeks before we switch the moniker back to TNA.
So we're going to change in the overlays, of course, here. The name Brace for Impact is going to be staying, but as you mentioned so appropriately, we're approaching the end of the year, which we all know. We've been living under a rock. Yes, TNA is returning. We are going to be covering the last big event under the Impact banner. It'll be Final Resolution. We'll give you guys the full preview. Just to pull the curtain back a bit, Colton, we are recording in advance here. So I know you guys just witnessed what happened with the AAA and the Impact / tapings in Monterrey, Mexico. A little bit of the great high-flying action, but we decided as a team we wanted to really dedicate all of our time to Final Resolution and what is going to be a landmark event going on in Toronto on Saturday. So it's going to be something we're going to preview, and today we're going to use our blow-by-blow segment to do some justice to an event that deserves it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing a deep dive for the last pay-per-view under the Impact moniker, and it's, I think a lot of people thought that this might have been a little bit of a throwaway card, but it's actually shaping up really nicely, man. We've got some cool stuff coming up, and I think it's going to close out the year really well.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of the conversations that continue to go around Impact / TNA is biding time. And we talked about it last week as well, but I do want to put a little bit of appreciation on the fact that they did do these AAA joint show tapings. I think it's something that's exciting for the fans, not only in the building, but the production wise. Saw some clips of the Josh Alexander match, linking up with some of the AAA stars. So, check out social media and make sure you guys are checking out that episode because we want to put some weight on it. We love when promotions work together. So this isn't just because we don't think it's important, but Final Resolution to me is a little more important to put a lot of zest on it and give it what it really deserves. A full breakdown, match by match, talking about it and treating it like a big event, because outside of just the Impact banner going away, moving to TNA, the Final Resolution brand has been important for them moving forward. It will remains to be seen if they're going to keep that pay-per-view name on the TNA, but Final Resolution has a deep history in recent memory.
Oh, absolutely, man. And even going back into TNA, when I was first looking up the card just to see the kind of the big picture before we got ready to record, the first thing I pulled up was TNA Final Resolution 2007. So I mean, I'm hoping they keep it. I like the name, and it's very fitting with it being towards the end of the year. New Year's resolutions and things of that sort. It's shaping up to be a good card, but. Yeah, props to Impact / TNA for continuing to do cross-promotional shows. I mean, we get New Japan crossovers all the time with Impact. We see AAA stars, on our weekly TV throughout the year. So really cool of them to actually go to Mexico, go on AAA's home turf, and put together a show, man. I mean, it's just everybody does better when we get these cross-promotional shows, and I feel like Impact's really leading the charge.
Absolutely. And we have, obviously, we're recording this on Tuesday, and we do have the spoilers. We could go break them down, but didn't think we separated for the next at least 2 to 3 weeks. So don't want to make a mistake and give you guys spoilers for a show that you may not have seen yet. So again, we'll talk about it next. We'll give you guys the results of it. And who knows, we're going to try to be creative in the last couple of weeks of this year for Brace for Impact, because we want to get ready and maybe try some different things out as we get ready for TNA, because as we know, a lot of the stuff happening on screen for Impact outside of this Final Resolution card that's coming up has been a little bit of, we use the word punting. We could talk about a little bit of just biding time or whatever it is, but it gives us an opportunity similar to Impact to be creative with what we're bringing you, conversation. And there's plenty of it to have. The news cycle continues to cycle through, Colton, and there's a lot of conversation about Impact / TNA, about the talent, about everything going on. So the news cycle never sleeps.
No, not at all, man. And speaking of news, I mean, we've got a very, very hefty week of news in the Insight, man. You want to get into it?
Let's get into it. Let's get to the Insight.
The Insight.
All right, here we are with the Insight, the news segment for Impact / TNA Wrestling, and we had the biggest news of the week we got some scheduled dates here, and TNA Wrestling is bringing an Impact Plus special to New Orleans in February 2024. So it was announced earlier this week that No Surrender 2024 will be held at the Ilario Center on February 23rd, that Friday night. The next night, TNA Wrestling will hold a set of TV tapings at the venue. It's going to be called Bayou Blast is the name of the taping. So No Surrender will stream live on Impact Plus and Impact's Ultimate Insiders YouTube service. We had some advertisers of Moose, Jordan Grace, Eddie Edwards, Alex Shelley, Josh Alexander, Mosh Slamovich, Killer Kelly featured on the event graphics. They gave us ticket information, Colton. We have a list of other dates that are going to be coming up throughout the promotion schedule with the TNA rebrand happening. But your initial thoughts of them going over to the Bayou and having a lot of fun over there. It seems like a great place for tapings.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, New Orleans is a great town. It's a great place to go any time of the year, man. And especially with them going in February. I mean, they're not going to be too terribly far off from Mardi Gras. Actually, I was just looking it up. 2024 Mardi Gras is actually going to be 10 days before they get there. So, man, It's going to be, February 13th. So, it's going to be a lively spot to be, man. I love that, you really really don't have to do this, but TNA Impact, they always do a set of tapings after a big show in that same town. And they always give it a name, which I appreciate. It makes it feel important to the town that it's in. Bayou Blast is a 10 out of 10 name for some tapings, man. I love that. So I'm not familiar with this venue, the Ilario Center. I'm sure it's been called something else at some point in its time. So I don't know if I've ever been there or not. But man, I'm excited to see them. New Orleans is not a town that we've seen on the Impact schedule in any time in recent memory. So cool to see them branching out from their big hits of Chicago and Toronto and a couple other towns over in Canada as well. So hoping that they have a great turnout, and especially with that influx of folks coming in and out from Mardi Gras, hopefully it's a good crowd.
So for this venue, it's wrestling history. I'm looking it up here. April 4th, 2014, it hosted Supercard of Honor, the 8th edition of it from Ring of Honor, and it also hosted a Surrender back in 2022, of course, with Impact Wrestling. As far as capacity is 2,400. It's in West Wego, Louisiana, so it doesn't have the New Orleans name on it, but it's just outside. But this is the practice facility for the NBA's New Orleans Pelicans, formerly the Hornets, from 2002 to 2013. So no longer in rotation. It opened up in 1993. So there's your history of the John A. Ilario Senior Event Center, 2,400. But like we said, the culture outside of it, you mentioned just picking a city and making it their own for the weekend. And they have the big events with the TV tapings. And we were wondering what the model would look like going into the new year with the TNA rebrand. Maybe they move away from it, but it seems like they're doing more of the same with big event, pay-per-view level, TV tapings to follow with all these great tapings. We're going to see the same stuff happening with Hard to Kill and these Snake Eyes tapings. Of course, we'll talk about the big news dropping with that event happening early January. So the model's kind of staying the same here, the TV tapings, but we'll see if there's a little more pizzazz, a little polish on top of the presentation. But I got to say, man, New Orleans, they've been there before, so this isn't uncharted territory, but it's kind of cool to see them, like you said, stepping outside of Toronto and Chicago for their big flagpole events.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think what better way to, really continue to lead the charge and carry the flag of the name change and the fact that TNA is back. And that's to, branch out and hit other cities that you haven't hit in the last 12 months. So looking forward to it, man. I'm sure it's going to be a good show.
So with the announcements of these February dates, just want to run through some of the other dates we do know as we approach the end of the year and move into 2024. As we discussed, we're going to preview it in depth during Blow by Blow. We have Saturday, December 9th, Final Resolution at the Don Colava Arena in Toronto. On Saturday, January 13th, they go to Hard to Kill pay-per-view at the Palms Casino Resort in Las Vegas. They have the TV tapings the next day in the same arena on the 14th. Friday, January 19th is the TV taping in Heritage Park in Orlando, Florida. Saturday, January 20th, more TV tapings in Orlando, Florida. And then these two other dates in February get added. The Ilario Center in New Orleans, No Surrender, or the Impact Plus special, and TV tapings after that. Of course, they're going to package a whole bunch of stuff in there. We know that there's enough tapings in there to stretch them out. We know they have 2-3 weeks worth of tapings on each of those shows here. I think in Vegas, they have 2 nights of taping, so they probably can get 4 or 5 weeks of TV product on there. And like we said with New Orleans, they're going to stretch themselves out to, crazy to say, but almost mid-March, early April. It's pretty insane to see this schedule as they run through. And some bang for your buck at these venues that they were taking out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And good on TNA for, after Final Resolution, making sure they spend January and February in some warmer spots than Toronto. Between Vegas and Orlando and New Orleans, man, everybody's going to be real comfortable in t-shirts and shorts.
And that's part of the appeal, not even just like where they're taping, but the amount of content that they could fill out on certain segment weekends. And Mark Bitters was on the debate, I believe, with you guys talking about the Impact schedule. I know he helps out over there. I'm unsure if he's an official there or he's someone who, I know he's on ring crew at times, but he was talking about their schedule and how easy it is. You can actually have another full-time job while doing this because they can neatly fit, like we said, 4 or 5 weeks of tapings and a pay-per-view all in a 3-day span in one city. And then you can kind of go about your day and don't have to get on the road again. And that's the appeal too. I mean, you have to make the best and you have to be attractive to looming free agents. And we're seeing, man, the conversation on X and all the other social media platforms has been the New Japan Pro Wrestling free agents that, I mean, there's a plethora of them coming up at the end of the year, most notably Okada. There's been conversations about him and where he's going to go, flirting with WWE. But the way that Impact/TNA can be a part of this game of acquiring free agents is they have to find a way to lure them in with the things that WWE and AEW can't provide. And part of it is the schedule. And you and I have been harping on, at least I have been talking about wanting to move more towards live programming. But the downside of that is it's a grind on your talent. It winds up limiting the amount of time they can be there, and do other things as well. Like I think part of Impact and TNA's appeal is you could be there, be on a semi-big stage, and hopefully it gets bigger as time goes on. But there's also the allure of working independence and being able to fulfill those things outside and make money, and maybe not in just wrestling. So to have a life outside wrestling, God forbid, there's stuff outside of wrestling and travel. So, I know I'm kind of ranting here about it, but I feel like as time goes on, that's almost what makes TNA and Impact who they are.
Well, and I think too, something that we don't talk about a lot when we think about this is that we always talk about the consistency of Impact and TNA storylines and how, like, bar none, it's the most consistent product in pro wrestling. The valleys and the peaks and the valleys are, it's all pretty even keel for the most part. Even though it has peaks and valleys like the other promotions, they're not as deep and not necessarily as high. But I think a lot of that comes with the fact that, they probably have to plan out. I mean, they have to plan they have to know their storylines a little bit better. Because they have to see the big picture. Like you were just saying, man, I mean, with the tapings that we're aware of going through February, this is probably going to take them through, mid-March, debatably early April on material taped to hit TV for week to week. And that, that probably has a lot to do with the fact that, because they do run like a 3-day, 4-day top schedule at a time, they got to be able to get a lot done and get through a lot. And it just really, it pays off. It's a lot of planning, and as much fun as it is to see more live events. Yeah, I think there's a lot of benefit to this model, man. I mean, not only is it's more cost effective, but the fact that your talent can go work other places they want, or like you said, if they can have a life outside of wrestling or just more time at home with their families. Hell, man, that's what the big draw for AEW was when they first came on the map. It's like, all right, cool. No house shows.
Collision in the house shows. Yeah,
exactly. No house shows at all. And even now that we're doing house shows, they're not doing anywhere. They're doing a fraction of the amount of house shows that WWE's doing. So, the schedule is still better for the most part from what it seems like. But that was a big draw. I was like, oh man, 1 day of TV a week, 2 days of TV a week. Sign me up.
And also looking at we talk about bang for your buck and really extending something. They brought in Will Ospreay for the Bound for Glory tapings, and they stretched him out for 4 weeks because in between that, they hyped up showing the match card he's going to be having with Josh Alexander. So he has the match with Speedball on pay-per-view. People see it. The match happens the next day. People over there in the live audience in Chicago saw it, but it was another 3 weeks until we saw it on our screen. So they were able to show the card and get excited for it, put it on social media. So it was almost like you had Will Ospreay for 4 weeks instead of a weekend. And that is the benefit of doing something like that. And again, it's unorthodox. It's not exactly like WWE and AEW couldn't do it. That's just, it's not their product, but we want to talk about being an alternative and being different and appealing to not only talent, but to the fans. And it's, certainly something that is being creative. And we'll see if the TNA brand takes the step to be on par with AEW and course, like we're looking forward to a little bit more of the production side. We covered it in one of our big stories earlier, down the line in our episodes here. Being part of the production side of things, we know that things are going to be a little bit more highly polished. That is, kind of what they used here. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can bring and the energy. I mean, we know the graphic team and production had gone up already. So sky's sort of the limit at this point.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have the curtain be pulled back and see the full reveal of what the new TNA is going to look like, man. It's I'm sure it's not going to disappoint.
And championship belts and all too. People forget that. Like we're going to get a lot of reveals at Hard to Kill. I think it's going to be really, really cool to see.
Yeah, man. It's going to be an overload in a good way, I think.
So Jordan Grace was hyping up her showdown with Trinity Fatu, and the Juggernaut, as we know, is going to be facing the Knockouts champion at TNA Hard to Kill 2024 in Vegas. So she spoke about the matchup during a recent interview with WrestleZone, where she admitted that she wants the champ to, quote, hit her as hard as possible. She adds that she will not go to anyone and complain as they do in WWE. So this quote was very interesting. She said, she's had a completely different struggle than I have, but I do think that's the edge that I do have on her. And I think I did for a long time. I have the grit and I just have the extra little edge about me that is going to take her off guard. I think I can bring out a little bit of that and a little bit of that intensity. She's such a nice person, but I want her to kick my ass. I want her to punch me in the face as hard as she can. This isn't WWE. I'm not going to go and run and complain to anyone if she really does it. I really want her to give me everything she has for real. So before we move into talking about her goals for the new TNA and where she sees herself, your thoughts on this quote? I mean, Jordan Grace, epic, right?
Yeah, man. She's bad as hell. She pulls no punches. I love that she called out WWE directly, and it's important to separate yourself, man, because Impact is a very different product, and I'm so excited for this match, man. I mean, not that any of Trinity's title defenses have disappointed in any way, shape, or form since she's been here, but this one, man, this has got a real big fight feel. This is a couple of titans in women's wrestling, just across any promotion they've worked for. These two women alone are just pillars of women's wrestling across the board. And I mean, this is a big fight feel, man. And I just feel like it could go either way. Either way, whoever comes out on top is going to be elevated big time here. And man, I'm really looking forward to this match.
So this WrestleZone interview is available to listen if you want to check it out. The other quote that was interesting, because the interviewer had asked her, what's her goal in the new TNA? And she said, I want to be the face of TNA. I want to be, I guess, in this era, the first face of the women's division in this TNA. That's what I want to be. She finished up by saying, obviously, there's been TNA Knockouts world champions in the past, but I'll be the first in this era. And I think it is a really important era. So we know how important she is, not only to just the Knockouts division, to the presentation at large. She's been pushed strongly, even competing with men. The intergender stuff has been a large part of what Impact has been doing for many years as being pioneers in that section of the world. They do it better than anybody. We know that the women's division is always the benchmark of where things can go. Pioneers in that as well. But Jordan Grace continues to raise the bar where it is. And I fully expect her to win at Hard to Kill. And as you said, as time goes on, the more build-up momentum. I like that she's mentioning this in interviews. They're not looking past the final resolution match, but this is where they're going to. This is a huge, huge event that everyone is waiting for, and we're still weeks away, but man, there's a lot of juice on this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm with you, man. I think Jordan comes out on top here. It's not, no disrespect to Trinity. She's been a great champion, but we also haven't gotten an opportunity to see her chase whatsoever. So I'm really looking forward to just this matchup, man, is going to be incredible. But yeah, I think there's no way that Jordan Grace is leaving Vegas without the belt.
So we also had some news dropping earlier in the week about a certain someone that was everyone thought he'd be TNA for life, but they're like, okay, well, we lost out in the sweepstakes to acquire Will Ospreay with a 7-figure deal, potentially multi-year, the largest offer in Anthem history. But alas, Colton, Will Ospreay will accomplish his goal in stepping into a TNA ring very early on. We know that the working relationship with AEW is there, but we didn't know how soon it would be. It was announced earlier this week that Ospreay will compete at TNA's TV tapings in Las Vegas on Sunday, January 14th. At the tapings, they're calling Snake Eyes. It's taking place at the Palms Casino Resort one day after TNA's Hard to Kill pay-per-view. As we know, Ospreay wrestled 3 matches for Impact this October, returning to the promotion for the first time since 2016. He defeated Speedball Mike Bailey, Josh Alexander, and Eddie Edwards, who knows? Maybe the speedball match will be the first ever match of the year for the tourney. So you guys can get those awards at the Wrestling Tonight. We'll be dropping that on January 1st. So I know that match is going to be in contention. Did it top it? I know we're going to hear one name at least. Will Ospreay is certainly going to probably, spoiler alert, have the match of the year at least on one half of it. He's been a part of 10 of the last 13 best matches of the year, but I digress, Colton. But after his match against Alexander, Ospreay got on the mic, and this would fueled a lot of the fire about maybe he'll come here because he said he wanted to enter a TNA ring. He talked about Christopher Daniels versus Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles was the first ever match he ever saw, and it's what made him want to become a pro wrestler. So, his heart and soul is into TNA, the brand. We felt like it would be like, okay, maybe we'll get it in the summer once things settle down. But he was unveiled as AEW's new blockbuster signing at Full Gear. He's under contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling until February 2024. We're going to get him in a TNA ring in January. How's that work? Pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome, man. We're awful lucky to get him that often, and just, like you said, just a few months back. Super excited to see Ospreay versus Alexander too, man. I knew that we would get another meetup between these guys, but I did not think that it was going to come around so quickly. So, man, this is going to be, hard to kill. We've only really got 3 matches lined up so far. We've got Moose and Alex Shelley for the World Championship, Trinity and Jordan Grace for the Knockouts, and now Alexander and Ospreay. What else do you need, man? I know there's going to be more added to this card, but I'm sold already. I was sold before this match was announced, just for the excitement for the rebrand. This is going to be a hell of a card to kick off the new era of TNA.
So we had another discussion we talked about the walking weapon, and it feels like he was Mr. Impact for a long time. He's been challenging for the world title again in losing efforts. We'll see where they go with Josh Alexander as time goes on, but he recently spoke with Adrian Hernandez for an in-depth interview to talk about Hard to Kill. This was back, I think it was a week ago they did this, so the quotes are pretty recent. So during the discussion, Josh Alexander was talking about the return of TNA wrestling and capitalizing on the momentum. That was a conversation that you and I had last week, talking about momentum. And speaking about his reaction, he said, instant excitement. I was unable at the time to travel to do. We filmed that thing that aired post-Bound for Glory, the whole announcement for TNA, and they wanted me in it. I was just like, well, I'm booked that day. I have to do this for my visa. They were just like, make it happen. I was like, I don't know if I can. They were like, this is what it is. They made me sign an NDA, and they told me, I was like, okay, I'll move heaven and earth to make this thing happen. Not just as a wrestler in the Impact Wrestling locker room. All of us are super excited for TNA because we've either been a part of a TNA in the past, guys like Frankie Kazarian, Chris Sabin, Alex Shelley, and the list goes on, or all of us, me, Jordan Grace, and all these other names, Trey Miguel, Chris Bay, we grew up being enormous fans of the brand. Those 3 letters are synonymous with what gave us passion to get into the wrestling business in the first place. So for us to be able to be a part of it now under this rebrand and going back to the name, I think it's just tremendously exciting. He finishes up, I'm so happy to be part of it, and I honestly got goosebumps talking about it. I can't wait for January 13th. So obviously the excitement's there. It feels genuine from everybody. Everyone talks about the news and everyone has digested at this point. The news cycle moves so fast in wrestling that it feels like this happened months and months ago. But this is the biggest news story in a while. And, there's a quote here about momentum, and you and I were talking about it. Have they stunted the momentum? Is it just put on ice and they'll reheat it and get it back to where it was? But yeah, here's the quote about momentum. I'll let you take the lead on it and talk about it. But the momentum that Josh Alexander is discussing is really speaking from the side of where they were building from the start of what happened with this new Impact, rebranding themselves differently. We know that the lows have been pretty low as far as historically for the brand. It took a while to get back on stable ground. Josh Alexander was a huge reason for that, but he's talking about it in grand scope. And I think if you take the big picture in mind, Colton, at some point, this is nothing. This 4 or 5 weeks of non-programming kind of biding time, that's nothing. And as far as keeping the momentum going, this has been a giant boulder rolling down a hill, and we're about to hit TNA all speed ahead.
Absolutely, man. And so Alexander said concerning Impact Wrestling and the momentum it's gained over the past year, quote, "It's been amazing. It's all momentum, and momentum's growing show after show after show. We show up to a town like Memphis, where I'd never wrestled prior to Impact Wrestling, going there, and I'm unsure of how the reception's going to be. I've never wrestled. I don't know if I'm going to come out to people and are going to be on board with all the walking weapon. Josh Alexander is. And from the moment I step out, everybody knows me. Everybody's behind me. It's just the momentum, man. I think everybody's on board with pro wrestling right now, and everybody wants to see a little bit of what everyone has. And the one benefit that we have in Impact, and I like to call it TNA now because we're almost there, we're a month away, is our locker room. So we're all passionate. We're all fans of this product. We all became wrestlers because of this product. The Knockouts division on its own inspired our entire Knockouts division that we have here that's carrying forward. And it's one of the best female divisions in all of pro wrestling. He goes on to say, same with the X division, same with our tag division. It grows upon itself because we all challenge each other because we want to get back to what TNA was. I was the biggest fan in the world watching Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, and AJ Styles go at it at Unbreakable in 05. We want that crowd that in Orlando where you just see behind the ring. The match is going on. Everybody's on their feet, jumping up and down, losing their minds. It's coming back. It's beautiful to see. We just got to keep working. Man, well said. And, his comments on this bring up something that I hadn't considered is the amount of pride that, the younger generation of stars like Josh Alexander, Jordan Grace, and Chris Bay, Trey Miguel, like they feel as TNA fans, growing up TNA fans. Like, I don't think I'd ever thought about how they must have felt coming into work for Impact, having been such big fans of TNA as a kid, like being able to wear those 3 letters, on their chest and be able to say like, hey, this is the promotion that I work for and this is what I put out. I mean, that's got to be an enormous pride point for everybody involved, both, old and new. And man, yeah, I mean, he's right. I mean, the promotion has gained so much momentum. I mean, he's talking about just the last year, but I mean, I'd even go back to say the last 3 or 4 years, man. I mean, it's been gaining speed. And, we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, whether or not this kind of time biting or punting, whatever you want to call it for the last couple of weeks, if this was really putting it on ice. And I don't think so, man. I think it's, this time of the year, it's the holidays. It's kind of a lull. The time between Thanksgiving and Christmas before we get into Royal Rumble season is kind of a lull in the wrestling world anyways to begin with. It's, storylines always kind of seem to cool down a little bit. This was the best timing really for them. And the fact that it's had such a buzz about it that we're all still talking about it. We're all so excited, man. I think it was perfectly timed out for them. I think they built enough momentum to be able to back up off the gas a little bit, put all their energy into this rebrand and giving us the best premiere and the best product at Hard to Kill.
And to reiterate, I think having the time to make sure it's right. You only get one more first impression, and it's important for people that will be tuning in for the first time, maybe since the last time they were called TNA, that they want them to remember them for being something special. So there's going to be a lot of eyes on them in the initial. You want to make sure it's special. But this match with Samoa Joe, Chris Daniels, and AJ Styles getting a lot of mention. The Will Ospreay conversations about this Unbreakable match in 05. I love that Samoa Joe is getting his flowers too. I mean, I know Chris Daniels and AJ Styles are in there and people talk about their contributions. I feel more so AJ Styles gets his love. Chris Daniels and Samoa Joe, not as much, but feel it's appropriate now, especially where we might have Samoa Joe's crowning moment in his wrestling career at, World's End coming up. I think circumstances have kind of aligned at this point. CM Punk leaving, MJF getting hurt, Adam Cole being hurt, and Samoa Joe is the consistent, steadfast guy you could put the championship on to right the ship. And I feel like it's going to happen. And how appropriate with the emergence of TNA in the new year. AEW is going into their new year with who better than TNA legend Samoa Joe as the champion. I'm not saying it's happening right away, and I'm not saying it's definitely happening, but it feels like things are moving in that direction, and the stars are aligning. It's almost serendipitous. It's poetic. It's I don't know, higher level thinking of how things work out. Who would have thought TNA and Samoa Joe being a world champion, a different promotion, a major promotion at that, in 2024? Who would have had that on their bingo card? Not me.
No, man, not me either. It's a great time, and yeah, I'll echo what you say. I always love seeing Joe get his flowers, man. I mean, as a hardcore fan, I mean, I put him up there with he should already be on anyone and everybody's voting card to get into the Hall of Fame for any promotion he's ever been a part of. But I feel like, with the casual fans, he doesn't always necessarily get the respect or get the kudos that he deserves. So always love getting to hear him shout it out.
It's the WWE machine, man. They chewed him up and spit him out, and he had some big moments. Of course, his NXT run was very memorable. They booked him like a monster. But really, I think what spoke volumes is they kind of retired. And I understand he was hurt and stuff, and he's a little more healthy now than he was, but he was banged up. And to me, his run in WWE was encapsulated by being under a poncho at WrestleMania with Michael Cole. Like, that showed, like, you have Samoa Joe on your roster. What are we doing? Like, and I love that he's being able to show, first of all, we're seeing the influence he's had on the generation before, but he's going to have an influence on wrestlers that are coming up today because he's still competing at a very high level. And I don't know. I mean, I could talk all day about Samoa Joe. We could do a full 3-hour podcast about his contributions through Ring of Honor and TNA, and man, missed opportunity for WWE. But I think, like I said, I think he's going to be AEW champion going into the new year. And who would have had those two things like on their parlay of a betting slip to say TNA returns, Samoa Joe is a world champion? Those odds have to be the longest, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you would have said that January 2023, Samoa Joe will be AEW champion, where he was on the card, like ROH still, and TNA returns, that was not on anyone's radar. It's crazy to say. I love it.
TNA returning is an even bigger long shot to me at this point, man. Yeah, like, I was so surprised when they made an announcement. I'm super stoked about it, but I never ever would have called it. It really took me by surprise.
So we also have conversation about some talent that came over back from AEW. Frankie Kazarian was talking on social media about his decision to leave AEW in January of this year and return to Impact / which will now become TNA. Obviously, former multi-time X Division champion. He wants to become a world champion before his time is over. He's been heavily featured before, and after, since he left AEW. And to him, on social media, he said it's worth it. He said, in January, I made a very difficult but necessary decision. I decided to bet on myself. It resulted in the most rewarding, successful, and overall fun years of my career. I urge all of you who may be in a similar situation that action speaks louder than words. Don't talk it, walk it. So Frank Kazarian left a very secure place. And I don't know, maybe he would have been a part of roster cuts down the line, but inaugural AEW tag team champions. He's a guy who was heavily featured at the top of the card in a big way. I mean, he's a huge piece to what AEW did in their initial years. He left all of that to go back to want to work at a more consistent rate in bigger programs, and he felt like he had more to give to the Impact locker room at the time. And man, he's the perfect bridge, really. He's one of those guys that's a perfect bridge mark because of what he did in the old TNA to be there when the crossover happens again. He made the right decision because he's another guy who would have been just lost on, maybe they put him on ROH or he gets involved in some mini program, but he never was going to be the guy. And he knew that. So it's kind of cool to see him acknowledge that here and take a risk on himself.
Yeah, man. Always a good thing to do, to bet on yourself. It can be a scary situation and it can be a difficult decision to make. But I mean, Exhibit A, man, look at Kazarian. I think that guy does wonders for the Impact locker room. I mean, he's a veteran. He's still got a lot left in the tank, but I mean, what a learning tree to be able to sit underneath, man, for the young talent at Impact.
So we finishing up the news cycle here on the Insight with Booker T talking about TNA on his Hall of Fame podcast. So during it, Booker T was discussing whether TNA should return with the 6-sided ring when the promotion rebrands next month at Hard to Kill. So this has been a topic of conversation. Scott D'Amore quickly squashed it at that press conference, saying it's never returning because of just the health and safety of the wrestlers. It's a ring that's, I mean, horrible to bump in. No, I think that's the end of the conversation there. But aesthetically, nostalgia-wise, like a guy like Booker T talked about it here. He said, I do. That's the one thing they said is they're not going back to the 6-sided ring. For me, the 6-sided ring was TNA's true identity. That's what made them different from any wrestling company out there. Now, I don't know how difficult it is to make those 6-sided rings. It can't be that hard. It can't be that hard to house 2, 3, 4, 5 of them in the warehouse just to keep them fresh, throughout the year and whatnot. But the 6-sided ring was the identity of TNA. And I said when they lost all that, they lost a lot of time and money that they put into the company. That's just my opinion. Yes, I think, and I wish they would bring it back. Man, I couldn't disagree more, honestly. To say that that's their identity, just a swing and a miss to me from Booker T. Like, I understand what he's going for. It sets him apart on the initial, But what their identity was the X division. It was the women's division. It was the talent you were getting in 2005 with the match at Unbreakable we just talked about with AJ Styles, Chris Daniels, and Samoa Joe. It was the Ultimate X match. It was things that were happening, whether it was 4 sides or 6 sides or 10 sides, it doesn't matter. The talent was the identity. And to me, the conversation ends when it says the talent would be unsafe working in a 6-sided ring. It would be detrimental to their health. I don't care if it sets them apart. Like, the wrestling is what brings people and brings eyes to the product.
Right. And this, I mean, Impact TNA is already set apart from the other 2 big promotions on their own, just on their own right, man, by the product that they put out. I mean, I know that Booker T is not the only person that wanted to see a 6-sided ring come back, but man, I'd like to see Booker T work 5 minutes in a 6-sided ring today and then come back and tell me he feels the same way.
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Like, it's easy to say from, sitting on the pay-per-view preview panel of pay-per-view and say, like, I think it would be great, but you're not the guy bumping in the ring, 4 matches throughout a weekend. Like, we want what's best for the talent, and we want to move in a direction that is healthier for the talent. And yeah, aesthetically, nostalgia wise, it might get some people there to like curious eyes, but it's not going to maintain them. You have to have consistent storytelling, as we see here. Wrestling is wrestling. You have to find a way to draw them in. And if like the circus nature of a 6-sided ring was the only reason they're there, they're not going to stay for a while anyway. So you might as well just wave goodbye to them. You don't need them. You want to attract wrestling fans and also keep your talent safe. Again, we want to reiterate that a 6-sided ring is not easy to bump in. People do not like it. And to me, like, and I think there's a lot of conversations that can continue to happen with, the nostalgia piece of it, because this is what TNA is all about. It's the nostalgia brought back and rose-colored glasses and all that. And I think, I don't know, like, that's not their identity. I think that's also just disrespectful to their legacy. I know he spent time there and he has the right to say what he says. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a legend. He's done it all. But to me, that's disregarding TNA's real identity and legacy by just being like, yeah, they used to just have a 6-sided ring.
Yeah, I feel like it really minimalizes the impact that TNA had, pun intended, not intended at all, but pun intended. I think that it really minimalizes what the product did for pro wrestling as a whole, but to say that that's their identity. But I mean, at the time that he came in, it was the 6-sided ring. I'm sure that made a huge impression on him as already a veteran of the business by the time he got there. So yeah, kind of a big swing and a miss for me as well. So, I mean, I'm sure people are going to continue to watch this product. That's the thing, man. Like Josh Alexander said, with the momentum they've gained over the last couple of years, they don't need gimmicks like a 6-sided ring to bring people in, man. The people are already here.
Exactly. And I don't think the 6-sided ring has substance. It can bring people in on a spectacle, like, wow, they're doing that crazy thing, but no one's going in there to see what the ring looks like.
Right.
No one's going there to watch a 6-sided ring. They're going to see the talent and the roster that's been constructed. And if you're putting Will Ospreay versus Josh Alexander and you're putting Moose as your world champion going against Alex Shelley, well, obviously Alex Shelley, the world champion, in a title match, that's going to bring people in the door. Like, it doesn't matter where they're doing it. They could do it on a barroom floor. It doesn't have to be in a 6-sided ring. The identity of the promotion is not based on where they're wrestling. It has to be the 4-sided ring to me because of the safety first and foremost, but they moved away from it. Like, some things just need to stay in the past, and 6-sided ring is one of them.
Yeah, completely agree.
Let's get to the blow by blow. And like I said, I know you guys just watched that great edition of Impact and AAA. We're going to be previewing Final Resolution, giving it its flowers and giving it the stakes that it deserves. Again, we're taping in advance. If you're just joining us, we're taping in advance, talking about Final Resolution, getting ready for Saturday. So we will come back to you next week, going over all the results that happened on TV. But having looked at the spoilers, not a lot happens to advance story. It's just great action in the ring, which is awesome. Want to commend them for doing that, but it doesn't really advance the stories. We want to really talk about the big nuts and bolts of the promotion, which we did during the Insight. That's a big conversation. Want to continue to drive the big narrative conversations, not just talk about this match was great. This match was great. It was great action. We have a bigger picture in mind, and we're talking about all the news, keeping you guys updated. And I feel like that news segment will have you guys at least having conversations amongst yourselves about TNA as we approach that date at Hard to Kill, because there's a lot of stuff to chew on here. Because while everyone's talking about CM Punk and everyone's talking about AEW firing backstage production staff, like, there's a lot of news on the underneath about Impact moving into TNA, and I think people have to stay on top of it. And some people have a difficult time. That's why we're here, because we're even on Wrestling Tonight. We don't have enough time in our discussions to really dedicate to talking about Frankie Kazarian's, like, him making his decision and betting on himself, and the Booker T stuff. Like, that stuff falls through the cracks, and that's what this segment is for. So hopefully you guys enjoyed listening to us talk about the news. But let's get to the blow by blow, talk about Final Resolution.
Blow by blow.
All right, so blow by blow segment again. Usually this is where we do our match by match and go through our reviews of them, but we're going to be talking about Final Resolution, and in addition to being Impact's last special event of 2023, Final Resolution will mark the end and be the company's last major show before Impact Wrestling rebrands to TNA Wrestling, starting with Hard to Kill in January. Obviously set for this Saturday, December 9th in Toronto, Canada, and it's going to be, kind of an event, man. I think it's going to be the closing of a chapter in the book as he moves towards TNA. And I don't know, something was speaking to me to like really put a lot of the stakes on this card, even though there's not a lot of storyline advancement. There's a lot of placeholders in place because we know what our three biggest matches at Hard to Kill is going to be, but the card shaped up to being pretty well done. And I think we're going to have a lot to talk about following it because it's going to set the stage for Hard to Kill, which is, only going to be a month away at this point.
Yeah, man. It's going to be a great showcase of the talent and the work rate that we've seen from Impact over the last couple of years. So I think it's going to be a nice end to the Impact chapter. And, it's going to be a nod to, all the work that they've done and the product, the quality of the product that they've given us, week after week for over the last couple of years.
So starting with the pre-show, they announced that Frankie Kazarian and Sheldon Jean will take each other on here. This was announced earlier last week, and Kazarian is coming off a loss to the X Division champion Chris Sabre in late October. Sheldon Jean, as we talked about last week, he's searching for his first win. He's 0-9 here. So a pre-show match, not a lot of stakes aside from just like ego at this point. Frank Kazarian on social media and elsewhere has been really staking his claim he wants to be involved in the main event scene. So looking at this from the optical lens of Sheldon Jean is defeated. Your thoughts on this match? Do you have an early inclination who's going to win, and any interest on your end? It's a pre-show match, going to get people get their appetites sort of wet before the show, but it's important. It has a role here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I'm just excited to get to see Sheldon Jean more in singles action because the guy's talented. You mentioned him being 0-9. Quite a few of those losses are tagging with Kenny King. So I'm excited to see the guy get the opportunity to stand on his own 2 feet. I'd like to say Sheldon Jean gets a win here, but with Kazarian, staking his claim that he wants to be in the main event picture, and with him coming fresh off a loss to Saban, I think Frankie's got to take the win here.
Completely agree with you. I think Frankie comes out on top, and I think it's going to take a while for him to work his way up the card. We know he was featured heavily in the Eddie Edwards program, and that was like, he felt like he was driving a lot of the creative behind it. But I think Frankie's going to find his way in a major program very, very soon in the TNA legacy, because he is a guy who has, at the very least, you might have these guys kayfabe-wise staking claim of the original TNA roster, and he's one of those guys who. You go back on Impact Plus app, and Frank Kazarian is littered amongst all these great matches all over the place. Former X Division champion. I think he takes Sheldon Jean to school, and it's going to be a showcase for him just to get his stuff in. And Sheldon's going to go 0-10. But moving into Jake Something versus Jason Hotch. So, this is 2 rising stars in the Impact / TNA locker room, and they're going to be facing off in singles competition. So we know Jake Something really has showcased himself. He's been eager to make a name for himself since returning earlier this year. We've seen him all across the board here, most notably wrestling the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Sonata. But meanwhile, Jason Hotch has, been in tag team competition. You mentioned Sheldon Jean being, part of a tag team, but Jason Hotch is part of the Good Hands, and John Schuyler, is usually at his side, but not on this night. And he has an opportunity to shine on his own. I think maybe he's going to try to take to the next level, but Jake Something, his trajectory is up and up. I think it's a matter of time. They're going to push him strong. Like I said, similar to Kazarian, like it has to fit the right story, but Jake Something is the stock that's rising. Jason Hotch is a placeholder, and I love the good hands. I think they're going to be a very influential part of the TNA tag team division going forward. But this is the Jake Something show here, and this is going to be good night the lights for Jason Hotch.
I completely agree, man. I'm 100% behind Jake Something. I think the guy's incredible. Great look. I think every time he gets on the mic, he gets better. Really enjoying what he's got here. And, Jason Hotch, like you said, both John Schuyler and Jason Hotch are great talents. I like the good hands as well. It's a little unfortunate, I think, that, because we've had John Schuyler off on paternity leave. He's got a new baby at home. We've had him out for a while. So I kind of wish, and we've seen a little bit of Jason Hotch singles, but not very much. And it'd be nice to, because I feel like Schuyler's got to be coming back here before too long. I would imagine probably January, February, not really sure. But he's been gone a while already, so I assume that we'll see the good hands get back together before too long. So maybe a little bit of a missed opportunity to not see a little bit more of Hotch, get him in just, a small lower to mid card storyline. So, maybe we'll get a little bit out of that, maybe it won't be a totally clean win and he'll have another, maybe a little bit of a mini program with Jake Something going forward into the weekly TNA TV. But yeah, man, Jake Something is gonna get the win here, man. This guy is, talk about a guy who's making his way to the main event program, man. Just like Frankie Kazarian, Jake Something's he's looking towards the top, and it's not gonna be too long before he gets there.
It's not to say that Jason Hotch can't be a single star going forward, but the money to me is with the good hands. I think the presentation, as we talk about week after week, they've taken their foot off the gas. I mean, obviously you mentioned John Schuyler at home on paternity leave, but even before then, they kind of ebbed and flowed about how they presented them. There were some weeks they presented them as a legitimate, hard-nosed FTR-style tag team, and then there's other weeks they're used as a comedy act. And they showed their ability to work both angles, and I think they have been more than team players on this roster. I think their time is coming being tag team champions. I really believe that. I believe the Good Hands will be the showcase team in the division going somewhere down the line. But who's to say? I mean, Jason Hotch and both John Schuyler have the ability to be single stars. This is a good opportunity just on the outside looking in for Jason Hotch to get the opportunity to work with Jake Something and showcase what he can do in a singles capacity, because a lot of times these tag team guys, it washes over you, and John Schuyler and Jason Hotch are tied at the hip there. I mean, as far as their legacy goes. So this got to be a good opportunity that he's looking at, as even a losing effort, be memorable, find a way to stand out. And your job on this given night is to make Jake Something look like $1 million. And we know that Jake Something already walks in the ring, and he is usually the most in shape, the most athletic guy in the ring. How can we make him even better? And we'll see if Jason Hotch brings out a different side of him. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a sleeper of a match, man. I think it's going to be a lot better than people anticipate it being going in.
So our first championship match going to be breaking down is the Digital Media Championship being defended. Tommy Dreamer versus Diener. So as Tommy Dreamer, he has been Digital Media Champion since winning the championship from Kenny King at Victory Road this past September. So we saw this feud kind of come to a culmination here on November 9th. Dreamer defended the title against Crazy Steve. The match ended with Dreamer losing by DQ, but retaining his title. And the DQ happened when Dreamer used a fork as a weapon. After the match, Dreamer then continued to attack Steve with the fork and left him bloodied, which brings Diener into the picture here. He is emerging as a contender. We talked about the Crazy Steve feud not being over, and I feel like it's not over. This is a championship that functions like a TV championship. It needs to be defended. There'll be different guys floating in and out. So even though Diener's getting a shot here, that doesn't close the book on the Crazy Steve feud for me. I think eventually Crazy Steve will win this championship from Tommy Dreamer. He may even play a role on this night, but this is a kind of a cool match to me. Like, again, Diener's another guy since, him getting different creative and moving away from what they were doing with him earlier in the year. They're trying to find footing about what his role on this roster is, because he's talented. We know that whatever they give him, he winds up knocking out of the park. So he's trying to find his footing, and I think Tommy Dreamer retains, because I think the story continues with Crazy Steve, but I'm looking forward to a good match, and Diener deserves a shot. So this should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It should be a good match. I need to see Diener as Diener, because his presentation from the IPWF is still burned into my skull.
Right.
Man. It was so awesome. If you guys didn't see that, go back on YouTube and look it up, man. Something and Diener paired together was pretty incredible. I'm with you. I think Tommy. So I'm going to give two partial. I'm going to give two outcomes here. I think Tommy retains here because he hasn't had a successful defense. But I think if Tommy loses here, it's due to interference from Crazy Steve and that the ref doesn't catch. So yeah, because I'm with you. That Crazy Steve story, the promo that they had between the two of them in the ring, going back to Dreamer talking about him, letting Steve crash in his hotel room to save money as when he was up and coming. There's way too much meat on the bone for that storyline to be over. So yeah, my initial reaction is Dreamer retains here, and we get some sort of Crazy Steve run in or something at the end. There's a lot more to be told between those two.
It's a crossroad in the story because as we were discussing when they initially kind of got linked up together, what was Crazy Steve's intentions? And he feels like a character similar to the Bray Wyatt type where championship aspirations aren't usually what they're circled around on the roster. So he just wants to initiate chaos. I mean, so part of this could be initiating chaos, and he doesn't care if Diener takes the title that he was gunning for because it's not even about the title. It's about causing bodily harm to Tommy Dreamer at this point. And Tommy kind of incited violence towards Crazy Steve at this point, using his own game with the fork and all that stuff. So like I said, Crazy Steve, the character, not done with Dreamer. So whether he takes the title or Diener does, I could see that definitely happening. But to me, it holds more stake when the title is involved in it. Where do you go with Diener after the fact? Like, I don't know. The title's been sort of on a dead end a little bit since Hendry dropped it.
Definitely.
Obviously, with Kenny King winning it, it just feels lesser than. And I've been pining for it to be functioning like a TV championship, just be defended on a nightly basis. Every single show, to me, it should be defended. But I know they only have so many matches to go around, and Tommy Dreamer's not going to be a guy who works that consistently. So maybe once we're done with this story and figuring out where it goes, you have more of a workhorse type of championship that is defended on a more frequent basis. Because as we mentioned, I know they've had limited tapings, but it's been sparse. Like we haven't had Dreamer really defending this title outside of that match on November 9th. So, and that happened before. That was during the tapings that were in October. So it's been a while to have the title defended.
And I mean, I know we're getting a reset with the belts because we're getting all new championship belts coming in January. But I mean, as of right now, man, I think the Digital Media Championship is the best looking belt that they've got. And I'm with you. I want to see more of it. So hopefully we get moving into a program where if it's not every week, at least every other week.
That's an interesting point because with the title rebrand, there's been a lot of, looking at the other titles, I feel like there's going to be a big shift because the World Championship and the X Division Championship have that big Impact logo in the middle. Same thing with this Digital Media. But to me, like you said, the structure of the title, maybe if they find a way to keep the same shape and energy of this belt and put the TNA logo on it. Because again, if you guys are not familiar with the Digital Media Championship and maybe you've seen it but don't remember what it looks like, Google it. It is probably top 3, top 4, maybe top 2 championship belts in all of wrestling right now. And the name kind of grows on you. It's like a fungus. The Digital Media thing was like, at first I didn't like it, but moving into 2023, the cranky 30-plus-year-old was like, all right, I'm kind of okay with Digital Media because that is what it is. And it's not just a television show anymore. They are on YouTube. It's on social media. So Digital Media, at one time, Intercontinental probably sounded weird to somebody. It just takes time.
Absolutely.
But the title belt is amazing.
Yeah, great looking belt. I was the same boat, man. I hated it when I first heard about it, but it's a different time, and social media is another platform where we see social media kayfabe play out every single day on Twitter and Instagram, man. And it's part of it. I think they'll keep the title. I think they'll keep the name of the title going into TNA for sure. And like I said, hope to see more out of it.
So moving into this next match, we have Moose and Rhino. So obviously Moose is on a trajectory much further down the line here. He is biding time by all accounts and here in that world title opportunity in the Feast or Fired. And we know that he will be challenging Alex Shelley at Hard to Kill live January 13th on pay-per-view. But he has a long-standing rivalry with Rhino here. And people may forget this, but this is going to be not only a hard-hitting showdown between two guys that have a lot of miles on their bodies and a lot of history together. This is definitely something that they heated up because we saw an Impact a few weeks ago that Moose made a statement when he defeated Heath in singles competition. We know the relationship with Heath and Rhino is right there. But when Moose and Brian Myers looked at insult to injury, we got Rhino coming out to his aid. He hit the gore on Myers, and Moose rolled out of the ring, didn't get gored. But they figured out a way to make this feel important, even in a short term. And like I said, Moose is on a trajectory up to the moon, and I truly believe he's going to be the first of the new era, the world champion going into TNA as they crown a new champion. I really believe Moose will be that guy. He's Mr. Impact. He'll be Mr. TNA. But this is a cool one-off match. Rhino's such a legend. He's in great shape. This is what you want to use a guy like Rhino on the roster for. So Moose goes over, but it's going to be a fun, hard-hitting affair.
Yeah, this is going to be a hell of a match, man. I think you're right. Moose is definitely going over here. I just got to shout out Rhino, man. I mean, he does. He looks like $1 million. When he's only been back for probably a month or a couple of weeks over that at this point, and every time that we've seen him in the ring, man, I mean, he just looks fantastic. And you talk about miles on a body, man. Yeah, Rhino's got quite a bit of them, man, but he's in great shape. And I mean, this is going to be, like you said, you reheat this, and it feels like a grudge match just because of their history. And it's going to be a damn good one, man. I imagine this one will probably go, I'd say, somewhere between 8 to 12 minutes. They might even give them a little bit longer because, I mean, with everything else on the card, but it's definitely going to deliver. It's going to, and I guarantee, even though we know Moose is going over, there's no way they're going to have him lose going into Hard to Kill. This is going to have you guessing. You're going to be questioning yourself because I'm sure it's going to look like it could go either way multiple times throughout the match.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to get some near falls, and I'm sure Moose gets hit with a gore right in the middle of the ring, and you think it's over, and it's going to get people to pop. And that's the magic in the middle of these matches where it feels like a foregone conclusion to suspend disbelief and watch a guy like Rhino, who we're lucky in 2023 going to 2024 that he's a part of any active roster because of his legacy and what he's contributed and how great he's been. Definitely an underrated acquisition for all the different places he's been. Like, go through ECW and then WWE, WWF. Like, he's had great eras of wrestling and has been a part of a lot of great moments. I'm glad to see he's still contributing here in a big way, a different role, a veteran presence. And you mentioned having guys in the locker room that are, steady hands. A guy like Frankie Kazarian comes to mind, but a guy like Rhino, man, he's seen it all. So it's really awesome to see in this match. Like you said, him and Moose are going to tear the house down. I feel like it's going to be a great hard-hitting match.
Yeah, this will be a good one for sure.
So moving into Speedball Mike Bailey versus Trey Miguel. And obviously we have two guys that are, top of their game. Speedball Mike Bailey fresh off that great match at House of Glory with Swerve Strickland. And they had that, they tore the house down, and Speedball's been all over the place. I think he was at GCW this weekend. The guy's making towns and making dates, but Impact is his home. He'll be at Final Resolution in Toronto. And they're really, what Impact has been putting on social media, like, they really put a lot of importance and stake on this by announcing this match. And they really built this around Colton about building momentum as they may enter a new era. And I think both these teams and both these guys really have been on kind of a downward slide kayfabe wise, as far as like Bailey lost to Will Ospreay and the Rascals lost their tag team titles. And the story is right there. You want to be able to build momentum, and someone has to come out on the losing side, but doesn't really matter. This match to me, like, similar to Moose and Rhino, like, we know Moose is going to win, but this match feels like Speedball is going to win, but the end result doesn't matter. To me, it's just going to be a classic X Division match, a entree into what the X Division is going to be and continue to be throughout 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This match is going to be a love letter to the X Division. These guys are both two excellent X Division champions in their own right. It's been a while since we've seen Trey Miguel in the presentation in a singles. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm wondering if maybe, with the, his name's escaping me right now, but the addition of the third member of the Rascals that we just saw the premiere.
Myron Reed.
Yeah, Myron Reed. I'm wondering if we're actually going to get an opportunity to see a little bit more of Trey Miguel in singles action with Myron Reed maybe up there to step up and tag with Zachary Wentz. This will be a contender for match of the night for sure. It will not disappoint, but yeah, I'm with you. I think it feels like Speedball's going to win here.
I love what you said. Love letter to the X Division. I think this is important because there might be some eyes watching with the excitement of going towards TNA. Maybe some people subscribe to Impact Plus to relive the nostalgia years, and they say, oh, cool, this event is going to be happening this weekend. I'm going to tune in. And you may have some eyes that are going to be like, I remember the X Division. I remember what they used to do and some of the great names that were there. And if you haven't seen Mike Bailey and Trey Miguel go out, there are going to be a lot of people that are very happy leaving that arena or getting up from their couch at the end of the event, because both these guys go a million miles a minute, and Mike Bailey is at a new level right now. We talked about beginning of the year winning BOLA with PWG, and like I mentioned, just as this last couple weekends, like, he worked Swerve at House of Glory in Queens, and he was at GCW. The dude just doesn't miss. So I expect them to tear the house down in a different way. It's going to be a different type of match, but it's going to definitely be fast-paced. It's going to be, I mean, couldn't have said it better. A love letter to the X Division. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, man. This is, like I said, I think this will be hard-pressed to be beaten for match of the night.
You have Speedball going over in that one?
Yeah, for sure.
Me too. So we have the Impact Tag Team Championship on the line. ABC, Chris Bay, and Ace Austin are to be defended against the team of Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards. So ABC and Chris Bay and Ace Austin are looking to extend their second run with the Impact Tag Team titles. So with the addition of Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards to this division, brings up a lot of conversation. We talked about it last week. Myers held the TNA Tag Team titles for a single day with Trevor Lee back in 2015. Obviously, Eddie Edwards has a long legacy in the tag team division, 5 times with Davey Richards. His last reign was in 2016. But the other story here, of course, is their history outside of just being in a tag team. Rivals back in 2020, 2021, they had a hold harmless match. Edwards won a 2021 sacrifice. So there's a story within a story. I think Chris Bay and Ace Austin defend their titles successfully. They move on in a direction, like whatever they're going to wind up doing, whatever tag team steps up. But the Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards things intrigues me because this was strategic. I'm trying to figure out how, or if it's a placeholder for something different, but it has me definitely looking at Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards and what are their plans for the next couple of months, because both these guys are top guys. Brian Myers hasn't been a world champion yet, but he feels like he could be. And they're like hanging around with Moose. Like he feels like he has gained a lot these last couple of months being presentation wise. So very, very interesting. I'm has me intrigued, Golden.
I like what you said there, Ace. I hadn't thought about this pairing of Myers and Edwards through that lens yet. This was looking at this and I was like, oh, okay. This will be a good match. Just especially just the difference in body types and wrestling styles between ABC and then Myers and Edwards. Yeah, I think you're right. I think this was very intentional, and I think that there could be a lot of. I'm inclined to think now that, I mean, obviously ABC's going over. There's no chance in hell they're losing the belts. I'm inclined to think that maybe there's some miscommunication or some trouble in paradise between Myers and Edwards teaming here, and that we maybe get a transition to a feud between those guys. Because man, that would be especially given the history. But man, yeah, that would be an excellent singles program between Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards.
And I mean, obviously, as we look in our crystal ball for 2024, is there a world where you see? I mean, if Moose wins the championship, Brian Myers has a tie with Moose, and they have a legitimate beef if they want to heat that up and figure out a way to get them to feud. Do you see Brian Myers as being a TNA world champion in 2024? If you had to make that decision right now, do you see that happening?
Yeah, I could see that happening for sure. And if not 2024, definitely 2025. I mean, Brian Myers is world title material all day long, man. And I think TNA be a perfect place for him to have it. I imagine, I'm with you, man. I think Moose is probably going to take it here. And I got a feeling that his reign's going to be pretty long. Also, just mainly because TNA hasn't done a super long title reign in a while. That's something that look at WWE, look at AEW. We're seeing a little bit more of that. I mean, MJF isn't anywhere near as long as Roman's, but still, they're both long title reigns. And I'm expecting to see the next title holder go for a good while, but I don't see why you wouldn't want to consider Brian Myers as your champion.
At the very least, I think, and we talked about this in the debate a while back when I think it was you on there with a TNA question as they approached their 1,000th episode. They were really talking about who could be heated up as contenders for whoever's the world champion. And Brian Myers was the guy that I believe you brought up to the table, and he's definitely changed his perception. And I think that's sort of this microcosm of going to TNA / Impact, of what people are able to do with the creative freedom of showing different sides of yourself. And we talk about changing the body type, but dude, this guy is a main event in the waiting. Like, he could be a great face, sympathetic. He can be a great heel. He could do it all, man. Again, it's a far cry from what they were giving Kurt Hawkins on the WWE roster. Like, it just shows the aptitude for a guy like him, and his actions have been deliberate. And I think his brand, I mean, outside of, everyone talks about Cardona and what he's done being the indie god, and like his roadmap has been immensely, I mean, it's productive for independent wrestling at large to make money and be successful outside of being signed to a major promotion. But Brian Myers too, like his rejuvenation, even outside of the major pod stuff, like he really has separated himself from just being, the tag team and the major bros. Like he feels like he's on his own and doing his own thing. And I think this year was largely successful for Brian Myers. In 2024, I think the momentum continues. I don't think he wins the title. I think it's just the circumstance. I don't think it's because he's not at that level. I think he's going to feud with Moose over the championship. I really can see that happening middle of the year. I think that's going to be a main program. They have the history with each other, and they're going to put on amazing matches. And I would, to me, that could headline a pay-per-view. It really can.
Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah. I mean, you think about dream opponents for Myers, and Moose is up there, man. I mean, those guys have to be a banger of a fucking headliner for a pay-per-view.
I'm looking forward to it. And again, all the answers we're going to be getting, we're going to have to just wait until January for Hard to Kill. But we set the stage for Hard to Kill with these two main event tag team matches and the co-main events. We're going to start with the Knockouts division. Trinity and Jordan Grace teaming up against Deonna Purrazzo and Giselle Shaw. So this is the old WrestleMania Saturday night's main event type of booking here, where you put the two main events together. Mm-hmm. We just covered this on Shot Nostalgia. Well, actually covering it tomorrow as it drops. But before WrestleMania 22, they had John Cena and Triple H teaming together 2 weeks before WrestleMania. And this has that same type of energy. Trinity and Jordan Grace, before their Knockouts championship match at Hard to Kill, they have to coexist. And they have to take on a team that is pretty formidable. Deonna Purrazzo and Giselle Shaw, they are no slouches. Deonna Purrazzo definitely has been a downward slide as far as booking goes, but she is still very prominent in the division. Giselle Shaw, very, very talented as well. And the story here is not about the opponents. It's about Trinity and Jordan Grace. And we know Jordan Grace, to give you guys the context, she won the Call Your Shot Gauntlet match at Bound for Glory. She immediately declared she'd use her championship match against Trinity at Hard to Kill. And Trinity's legacy and the run here has been pretty important. Won the Knockouts championship from Purrazzo in July. She's defended against Purrazzo twice. Now Purrazzo can't challenge for the championship anymore. That was also talked about at Turning Point. If she loses, she can't challenge Trinity for the championship. So that chapter's been done. But man, the story is, can Trinity and Jordan Grace coexist? Do you see any explosion happening in this match? I think they go over. I really do. But I think we're going to get a lot of tension, and maybe we get some heel tendencies from either side. Who knows?
I'm thinking it's going the other way. I'm thinking that the tension between them plays out and that they have trouble coexisting and that they take the loss here, because them losing here doesn't hurt. I mean, it's the match is already set. They both lose. They both, end up with, mud on their face. They're not looking so great. And plus Deonna Purrazzo's long overdue for a win, man. I think
I could see her getting her pin back from Trinity.
I think her getting her pin back, and also, just getting just being a big moment for her and Giselle Shaw as well. Just be quite the upset, man. And Trinity and Jordan Grace, man, you put that match on the poster, and as a wrestling fan familiar with either of their work, you don't need any build up. You don't need any story there, man. It sells itself just by the name recognition. But I mean, we do still have a good month. We got 4 weeks of TV after this to put some heat on this story. And what better way than to sow the seeds of their issues with each other and them not working out together as a team?
To me, it's going to be interesting where they go with this. And like you said, it doesn't really need that much heating up because the story is there. The in-ring action is there. Just seeing them on the poster and selling the card, like, people are going to be in the building for a lot of different reasons, and this would be one of them. Jordan Grace, like, even in that interview, I know it was out of character. It was just talking about just outside of the ring stuff, but I think Jordan Grace, you could heat her up as a great, really just top-notch heel. But I also would love to see that from Trinity too. I know she's been like this white meat babyface type of stuff going on where she's just like happy to be there, going to defend her championship, whether it's against Sunny Kiss or whatever. It doesn't matter. She's going to show up and fight. But man, can you think she can work heel? Maybe we get that after losing the title, because I do believe Jordan Grace is going to win. I think they're going to reset these championship matches at Hard to Kill. They're going to go in with new champions. I believe Moose is going to walk out a Hard to Kill champion, Jordan Grace as well. But how to get from point A to point B, and what is the impact of Trinity's run as Knockouts champion? Has it been successful in our mind? And maybe we can make the decision going forward after the match. But has it had the impact that they thought it would have had? And I guess that's a conversation for another time. But I know I just gave you a lot there, but Trinity and Jordan Grace, I think the story here, I could see Deonna winning, getting the pin over them, but I do believe Trinity and Jordan Grace are not going to be pinned going in, and they're somehow going to pin Giselle. I think that's the easy out in this match, even though they have not shied away from pinning Deonna at all. But Giselle gets pinned here, and then we're going to get reluctant, sort of deliberate actions from both these women as they approach their match. Maybe a classic standoff of just looking at each other, similar to Mickie James and Deonna, where they stared at each other, or Mickie James and Trinity, I should say. But I think this match is going to be interesting. It's going to advance the story, and that's all I'm looking for, because we haven't really advanced any of these stories and pushed them forward. This is like the one we're looking at is, goddamn, these two women are going to be on the same side of the fence for the first time, and then they're going to be a month away. Biggest stage of them all at Hard to Kill.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. They can advance the story either way. It doesn't matter who goes over here, but I'm looking forward to some advancement. I'm thinking that, like you said, it's got enough name recognition on its own, but let's put some tension on it. Let's get these two nose to nose. Let's at least just give me a stare down, man, because really it's only been told by each of them individually. We really haven't seen them face to face since. So I'm sure it's going to be, I mean, all four women in this match are incredible talents. So then this match is not going to disappoint. I'm sure they're going to give them plenty of time, and it's going to be a hell of a showcase of everyone.
So going back to the conversation about Trinity quick, and I know we can have it in long form after she loses the title, but as far as her impact on this championship, do you think it had the intended effect that it was maybe perceived prior to her coming in? Because this was a huge free agent signing. It was a big story this year, and she's been a great addition to the roster. Do you feel like the championship run has lived up to the potential, or do you think it's fallen short of the goal line?
No, I mean, I think it's lived up to the potential for sure, because I think that I'm not really sure what potential or what bar I had it set for, because I think the focus was more so, for me at least, was on her coming in, and, her getting the championship was, kind of a given. I think that was probably conditional for her coming in. But I mean, she's had some pretty incredible defenses, man. She's Deonna Purrazzo and Mickie James both. I mean, those are two legends in women's wrestling that she's got successful defenses over, and multiple successful defenses over Deonna at this point. So I think it's been strong, man. I think she's brought a lot of good attention to the Knockouts division. I think it's definitely hit the mark, but I mean, I don't think that the, mark was necessary. I don't want to say it wasn't high enough or it wasn't too high, but I just didn't, I expected her to come in, get the title, and go on a good run. And I mean, it's been kind of an introductory victory lap, if you will, is kind of what it feels like to me. And that's what I expected it to be. And I think that we'll get a lot more out of Trinity's character on the chase, right, having her come up from the bottom. And I think it's time for that. I don't think it's overstayed. I think her title run has been perfectly timed. I don't think it's been too long or too short. I think if her losing to Jordan Grace at Hard to Kill is going to be the perfect amount of time for her first Knockouts title run.
Yeah, and outside of just her impact on the roster here, it was important for her to separate herself, because the package deal when her and Mercedes left WWE, there was always Trinity Mercedes. And this was a risk. And we talked about this on her end, not coming as a package deal wherever, and they went their separate ways. And I think that was very important for both of them to secure their legacy. And not that, Trinity had anything to prove per se, but I think really no one really talks about them in the same breath. Yes, they are friends. Yes, they are, associated with each other, but Trinity went on her own path. Mercedes went on her own, New Japan Pro Wrestling and all the stuff she's doing, and eventually probably AEW. But Trinity, she took the path that was a little bit less, formed on the road, that she went to a Knockouts division that needed a little bit more guidance, and she really helped cement it in a time where it needed a little bit more talent going forward, and helped secure Deonna Purrazzo and get all these new stars. And she's going to help Jordan Grace take the next step. And I think that's really important to remember here. This is the reason she came here. It's not just about being the champion herself. It's about who else she can kind of build up. And I think Jordan Grace is going to get the benefit of having someone like Trinity and what she brings to the table, beating her on a big stage like Hard to Kill, going into 2024 and going into TNA. It's a huge notch, man. And I think they can't lose sight of that, because the decision that Trinity made coming over to Impact back when she did, no one really expected that. I think it was, it was definitely a possibility. Everyone's a possibility, but everyone kind of expected her to follow and go to New Japan with Mercedes, as I mentioned. And I think at this point, she's proven that she marches the beat of her own drum. She likes the creative control that she can have here, and her character is what she wants it to be here. And her and Jordan are going to tear the house down. I mean, you mentioned before, big fight feel. These two women are going to be standing in the ring together, and it's the showcase of the premier women's division in all of wrestling. And TNA is going to show why going into the new rebrand. That doesn't change, man. Knockouts division is the bar, and everyone else is chasing it. I don't care different stages, WWE having WrestleMania and AEW having All In. In order to chase what women's wrestling should be, the benchmark is Impact/TNA, and they're going to continue to prove it. And I'm just happy to see it, man. They're making huge jumps here, creating new stars. And the example is the 4 great competitors on our screens in a tag team match on a big stage. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, 100%, man. It is. Knockouts division is bar none the best women's wrestling going today.
Historically, too. It's been consistent, and it was well before their time of doing the things they did. And of course, they aged well, and we talked about it during the Thanksgiving special. There was some of the, a little more edgy production as far as the women goes, but they've always had an eye towards the athleticism and treating it as equals on the screen, and that was before any other promotion had that approach. WWE took light years to get there. So everyone wants to talk about the women's revolution. It started while WWE was sleeping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they joined the fight much, much later. So
absolutely.
Going to our main event of the night, we have the Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin taking on Josh Alexander and the debuting Zack Sabre Jr. So the fact that this is Zack Sabre Jr.'s Impact Wrestling debut is bizarre. We were talking about this, I think, when it first dropped, but man, work rate wise, it can be insane. Alex Shelley, the world champion, Chris Sabin, the X Division champion, Josh Alexander, the walking weapon, and Zack Sabre Jr., the best technical wrestler in the world. This doesn't even have to have any storylines following it. Like, this is going to be a really fun match. Alex Shelley seems like he's 100% ready to go. This will be his first match in an Impact ring since getting hurt. So I'm at Remarkable Wrestling in a 3-way tag team match for the Remarkable Tag Team titles. But this is going to be Alex Shelley going full tilt, getting ready for the match with Moose the next month, but seems like he's ready to go. And what better way to close out the Impact banner chapter of that book with the Motor City Machine Guns main eventing a pay-per-view? Seems poetic.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We talked about this card being kind of the nod and the homage to what Impact has been and the momentum they've gained over the last couple of years. And yeah, very fitting that we get Motor City Machine Guns teaming together. Both guys holding titles at this point, or singles titles, going into this match. Like I said, man, this doesn't need any story at all. This is a dream match. This is to get all 4 of these guys in a ring. It's going to be pretty incredible, man. And yeah, like I said, we were talking about it before we went on. I can't believe this is, of all the New Japan crossovers we've seen, kind of hard to believe this is Zack Sabre Jr.'s first time in an Impact ring. And, how fitting it be on the very last Impact show. Hopefully we get to see more of him once we, make the switch over to TNA. Really interested to see how Josh Alexander and Zack Sabre Jr. work together as a team, man. I think that's what's got me most intrigued about this match. All around. Hard to say who's going to go over here, man. You would think you have Motor City Machine Guns going over here just because they are kind of the definitive TNA Impact tag team, that comes to mind. But also too, at the same time, Zack Sabre Jr.'s a pretty big name, and kind of hard to imagine him taking a loss in his first appearance in this promotion. And, Josh Alexander's kind of overdue for a win as well. So.
Right. That adds to the intrigue for sure. And I also look at this, and whether it was deliberate or not on Scott D'Amore's part, but creative wise, looking at this as a bridge to the new era where you look at Motor City Machine Guns, there's no more teams synonymous with TNA than Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. Of course, they're part of the Impact roster, but they're TNA through and through. Josh Alexander, to me, has been the revitalization of the Impact brand, getting them to new heights with that long tenured world title run, having great matches down the line. Unfortunately, had to drop the title due to injury. I think the final piece here is Zack Sabre Jr., where they show they have the ability to seek out free agents and get big stars in the door. So I think this is a microcosm of really the sandwich of this new presentation of past, present, and future of this company and looking forward to the future. And maybe they didn't think about it that deep. They were just like putting dream matches together. But the way I look at it, it's the perfect bridge to getting from now until January 2024, where it's off to the races. And a guy like Zack Sabre Jr. being in this ring, it's a big deal. This guy is one of the top wrestlers in the world. Of course, he doesn't feel like he wouldn't have been in an Impact ring. If he came last year, everyone would have accepted it. It feels like he does belong there. But having him here, it just kind of shows. And we talked about it with Will Ospreay. Just because he didn't sign with them doesn't mean that, they're not going to be in the running for future free agents. They put a 7-figure offer out there, multi-year deal, the largest offer they ever did, comparable to what he got with AEW. It just didn't work out. It made more sense in AEW for Ospreay and his family, but they're going to be in the hunt, man. And guys like Zack Sabre Jr., when they need a new home to go to and have a permanent home, which it's never really permanent because, as we said, they have the creativity to float between different promotions and work. But as far as like their home promotion where they're staking their flag in, they're going to be in the running to get all these free agents that eventually come up, and they're going to sign a big one soon. And they're going to make a statement by doing it. They might have to overpay, but I think that's going to be strategic on there and where they want to stay. We are back. We're in the running. We want a guy that we can build around. They have a great roster, but I think they're always looking ahead. They have the ability, especially if they do more events, they're going to have more creative to have to figure out where to go. And some of the stars that are the older veteran side, maybe they move to producer roles as we get more of the skew towards the younger talent. I'm excited for the future, dude. Like, I think this main event to me it's the perfect exclamation point on what has been a great run for Impact Wrestling. And as we look forward to TNA, it's nothing but excitement and really just, anticipation.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. You said it very, very well there. This is a really good final chapter for the Impact banner. And man, yeah, this match, I think previews a lot of possibilities and what we have to look forward to moving into the new era of TNA.
And this is the hardest one to pick. And like you said before, like Alexander's due for a win. It feels like he's on a losing slide. Zack Sabre Jr. is certainly not coming in and getting pinned, but do you see the world champion being pinned or Chris Sabin being pinned, the X Division champion? Like, this is a really challenging match, and they're not doing a schmaz. They're going to figure out a way to get creative with it. If I had to go with my gut, man, I'm going to say that Josh Alexander and Sabre win this match, and I think it's going to be because whoever's going to step up to the plate against Sabin at Hard to Kill, and then Alex Shelley, maybe Moose gets involved for distraction, something to advance the story to keep it making sense. But it feels like Zack Sabre Jr. is coming in a winning effort, and he might be the one to, I don't know, get the pin. It's exciting. And the result of the match doesn't really much matter. It's where we're going and Hard to Kill. But they're going to be creative with this one because there's a lot of people in that match that kind of need to win. Like, that also creates the pressure of telling a good story, which I know they will.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick Alexander and Zack Sabre Jr. as well, man. I think, like I said, see it going either way, but I'm going to go with those guys.
So let's get to the shock and awe. We're going to give our final wrap up of the night and preview next week and kind of get ready for the weekend here and really to enjoy Final Resolution. Let's get the shock and awe.
Shock and awe.
All right, here we are at the final wrap up of the night. Again, we appreciate you guys joining us for this journey. Of course, we know you just probably enjoyed watching the AAA and Impact joint taping. Of course, we did not cover it. We're taping in advance, but we're covering you, giving you all you need for Final Resolution. So maybe you're watching this on Friday, getting ready for the pay-per-view the next day. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Next week's show will be on December 14th for the weekly TV show on Impact. We'll probably be covering more of the Mexico tapings. Who knows? We'll be creative with it. Impact's being creative with the way they're showcasing their product. We're doing the same here. Always having these in-depth conversations. You're never going to find more in-depth conversation about the Impact/TNA news that's coming down the pike because, no one's covering like we are. And I truly believe that at the Turnbuckle Tavern here, we really benefit from having this platform to talk about Impact because it deserves it. It was always in the mix of this Wrestling Tonight. It always was like thrown into the quick hitters on the end of the flagship. Sometimes it would float into the debate, but we never really had the ability to have these long-form conversations that bring to the forefront, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to put Impact/TNA in people's psyche because they need to be checking it out. So next week, we're going to be checking out probably those Monterey tapings. We're going to be talking about them, but Colton, on your end, what's going on this week, dude? What are you looking forward to? And man, we're approaching the holidays. Next week is the 14th. That's 11 days from Christmas.
Dude, I'm looking forward to getting my Christmas shopping done because I'm a little fucking behind, to be perfectly honest, which I always am, man. I'm always a little last minute, but yeah, man, just looking forward to the holidays. Looking forward. I'm real excited for this show, man. This is what I'll be doing with my Saturday night this week is watching Final Resolution. Exciting stuff. Last week I got to be on the debate, filling in for Sneed with Al Haney.
It was great. Listen, and great job driving the ship too, man. It was awesome.
Thanks. It was a lot of fun, man. I had a blast with Hal and of course Tom and Chad always. So this week I'm not on, but it's going to be another great episode. We've got Seth from Chick Foley Show on, so you always know when he stops by, it's going to be a great episode. And the Turnbuckle We got everything you could want, and Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Pro Wrestling Tees, Shauna Nostalgia on Fridays. We got the Raw Down Boys holding it down on Tuesday, covering all things WWE. You got Fig Night as well on Tuesdays. Yeah, man. I mean, the list goes on. We got something for you virtually every day of the week, man. And Wrestling Tonight on Mondays, man. It's your one-stop shop for all things wrestling news, man. It is my favorite way to start my week and get things, get anything that I might have missed, in my own social media scrolls and trolls over the internet. There's not many podcast channels and platforms out there, I think, covering it to the depth that we do, so we've got some big, exciting stuff coming for the new year. So stay tuned for that. And, just keep hanging with us and keep coming back, man. We appreciate all the love and support we're getting.
I appreciate the kind words and thank you for listening to Wrestling Time. Thank you for everyone that always supports the Tavern any way you do, whether it's a follow or buying a shirt. Like I said, reiterating, if I see a Turnbuckle Tavern shirt at an AEW or WWE event in a front row or some capacity or a sign with the logo, I'll buy your shirt myself. So make sure to reach out to me at ACEFIELD Retro if you're going to be doing that. I am very, very serious about it. But this weekend, so first and foremost, tomorrow, Friday, as you guys listen to this, Friday is Mike Belcaster's birthday. Reach out to at Mike Belcaster on Instagram. Give the dude a happy birthday. He's off celebrating his birthday, so Friday he's not going to be on Shot Nostalgia with me. I'm Mr. Solo Dolo covering really the largest gap in time we've ever covered. So we're covering the last ever 1992 Saturday Night's Main Event, the vehicle on Fox. They left NBC. It's sputtering down the road, running out of gas. And then 14 years later, 2006, we get another Saturday Night's Main Event where it's more nostalgia driven. It's driven towards like, okay, cool, we're going to reignite this and build towards WrestleMania. It didn't have the same function, but it was a really good time. It was 2 weeks before WrestleMania 22. As I mentioned, John Cena and Triple H teamed together in a handicap match against the SmackDown side of the main event, Kurt Angle, Rey Mysterio, and Randy Orton. But we also have this killer street fight, Shane McMahon and Shawn Michaels, as we build towards Shawn Michaels versus Vince McMahon in that insane match at WrestleMania 22. The landscape of 2006 WWE is jarring, and especially in the same sense with conversation-wise, going from 1992 and just to see, I mean, really the nice example of it is Shawn Michaels wins his first ever championship belt ever on the 1992 show against the British Bulldog, and then then he's back. I mean, we skip over so much where he breaks his back, has to retire, and championship matches throughout the new generation and being the guy. And then here he is as this new reformed, God-driven religious guy who's just on the second run of his career, this house money type of run here against Vince McMahon. It was really interesting to see the two difference of it. And I'm in there. I'm just, chatting up Shot Nostalgia. We have 2 more episodes left after this one. So it's going to be a 30-week hiatus where we're going to be dropping audio for WCW Season 1, 1996, but we will be returning in full in July with the NXT season, every single takeover, breaking it down. And we do have confirmation that Matt from Extra Cooler will be a full-time guest for all those episodes. So looking forward to it. Gonna be a great ride. I'll be like I said, you won't get the video form, but for those that did not listen to, and you're only an audio consumer, there's a lot more of you guys out there than we even know. The videos do pretty well, but the audio is almost triple, quadruple what we do on all those shows. And so for those that did not listen to WCW Season 1, 1996, enjoy the ride. We're going to be hopping in there. You're going to find that a younger ACEFIELD Retro, a less experienced podcaster, is a little green. But, the conversation, the spirit of the show is still there. We have a great conversation, and it was well received on video, and I'm hoping that it's as well received on audio going forward. So I'm happy that it's going to find a home on the audio platforms because it's been requested from people that they wanted to listen to it. Some people don't have the ability to listen to YouTube or desire to listen to YouTube in their car. So it's going to be living there, and I'm going to check it out in retrospect as well. So it's going to be interesting. But also want to thank everyone that came out to Amesbury, Massachusetts for Rad Pro Wrestling last weekend. Absolutely great show. Congrats to Rod Slab, the inaugural Rad Pro Wrestling champion. That's Bobby Orlando, if you guys know him. So it was a great show. We sold out in the Lafayette Club. So great to be a part of that. It's just an absolute blast. And this weekend, Remarkable Wrestling presents Back to the Hotel. So it's going to be Adam Priest from Alabama taking on Desmond Cole for the Remarkable Championship. We're going to have Culture Inc. versus Above the Rest. Some other great matches. Elijah Burke, the Pope, is going to be there taking on Brother Greatness. Going to be a great night of wrestling in Port Jefferson. So if you're in the area, make sure to get tickets and check it out. Check out my Instagram at ACEFIELD Retro. The poster is pinned, so you guys can find that. Also, upcoming events. We got Restival coming up at the end of the year. And I'm definitely going to be on Thursday, the Remarkable Show. We're doing Youth of the Nation. We're the first show kicking off Restival. Large responsibility. Looking forward to it. But I'm going to try to bridge the gap from then until Sunday, New Year's Eve. Rad Pro Wrestling is having their holiday spectacular on Sunday, New Year's Eve. I'm going to try my best to stay in town in Worcester to do both. And I'm just trying to pick up a booking in between to make it worth it. Doing the research, and I'm going to try to make it home in time for New Year's to celebrate, on my couch. But if I leave at noon, probably can get home in time for it. So it's going to be a busy couple weeks here for the ACEFIELD Retro brand, but wouldn't have it any other way, man. This year has been an absolute blast. 2023 has been one for the books. And one of the highlights, dude, has been working with you on a consistent basis on a weekly basis. I think it's been one of my favorite shows of the week. This is a no-brainer. We hop into the lab and just create amazing content. And I think we're giving a voice to Impact, a well-deserved voice for it, because people don't really talk about it. And I think couldn't have done it better with anyone else but you. You bring the energy every single week, and I appreciate you.
Dude, thank you so much, brother. I've been doing this show with you is absolutely the highlight of my week every week. It's been a great journey. We're 25 in, man, and we're going to keep going, man. We're super excited to keep it going into the new era of TNA, man. And gosh, yeah, if you guys are not following ACEFIELD Retro on Instagram, start doing it now. The guy's absolute fucking machine. Listen to him. Like he does. I don't know when you sleep, brother. You kill it. I
got my full-time shooter too. Like I got my shooter job. So
exactly.
So it's a balance, but like I said, it's all for the love of pro wrestling, man. It's just, and I'm battling a cold right now, and I feel like everyone is sick, coughing and sneezing in some capacity because of the change in the weather. But I just think it's, you wear yourself down a little bit, burning the candle at both ends. But I love it, man. And it makes it worth it when we get feedback from you guys and talk about wrestling, and just love the interactions, the positive ones. But it's all about persistence, man. And that's what I appreciate with everyone here on the Tavern, man. We just every single week we're driving out 6-7 shows of content, while, not to throw shade at any other show, and that's their own prerogative, but you see all these shows go on hiatuses and they disappear and they don't do episodes sporadically. For us here, as long as the shows I'm doing, that you're doing, that, we continue to drop, we want to make sure that we're giving you guys content that you can rely on, and know that if there's a big event that happens in wrestling, whether it be TNA, whether it be AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, we're going to be talking about it, that you don't have to wait a week to get it. Maybe we just skip a week. There's consistency here that, on those days. Friday morning, Brace for Impact drops. You also know Monday morning, the debate drops. Tuesday morning, Wrestling Tonight drops. On Wednesday now on audio, Raw Down drops. On Saturday morning, Shot Nostalgia drops. Like all these shows, the consistency is what to me separates Tavern for everyone. And not to pat ourselves on the back like the Barry Horowitz, but I just see so much energy from the other podcast community that feels like, they don't want it as bad as us. And I know that sounds cocky, but I just feel this year for 2024, we approached 12,000 followers on Instagram. We continue to build this brand. And it's because the passion of pro wrestling and its authenticity of the energy we bring towards this. And again, it wouldn't be possible with every equal part of the Pod Foundation. But I just want to, just make it clear. I'm damn proud of what the Turnbuckle Tavern has accomplished in this year.
Dude, as am I. And it's, yeah, you think about earlier this year being at, around 3,000 followers on Instagram. And yeah, we've broken 12K. I just checked it just now. So it's incredible, man. Consistency is key, man. And we love what we do, and we appreciate all the support. Like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. We're going to be here every week, giving it up for you every single time, man. So yeah, tell your friends, keep coming back. And yeah, thank you guys for a great year.
Appreciate it. And also, just to reiterate, I mentioned it in passing before, and we'll give you more information on my Instagram. I posted the logo for the tourneys. We're going to be taping in advance that week of New Year's Eve. So on New Year's Day, that episode drops on that Monday. Chad and I are going to be doing our own award, a version of the end of the year awards. So there'll be a voting portion of it. I think maybe we'll put some voting in there. We're going to have some Pod Foundation voices, but largely it's going to be for Chad and I to wax poetic for the end of the year, performer of the year, match of the year, event of the year, that kind of stuff. And I'm looking forward to it and trying to make it an annual thing because, the tourneys has a little bit of a ring to it.
Yeah, it does. I like that quite a bit, man. I'm looking forward to that.
So that's all we got for you guys. We really appreciate you listening, and thank you guys for hanging with us on a Thursday night or a Friday morning or a company to start your weekend. But we'll be back next week talking all things Impact Wrestling as we approach the end of an era. We're going to be talking about TNA. The only thing changing here is that little logo on the overlay here. We're going to be back here talking all things with this most consistent product that we continue to love and enjoy. But we'll talk to you guys after a while.